Hey everybody, it's me, Scott from Heroic Series Gaming. I'm coming at you today, just doing a review on the Lone Wolf RPG, which I left up right there to make no surprises. Today we're going to be talking about the Lone Wolf RPG. This is the version created by Cubicle 7. I looked into the Mongoose version, so there's two versions of the tabletop RPG version of the game books, right? Actually, it's technically three versions, but we'll get to that in a second. Essentially, the Mongoose version came out in 2003, 4-ish. It wasn't super good. It was just a D20 system. It was basically Dungeons and Dragons, just with the rules for this world in it. And nobody really liked it. It wasn't super popular. It wasn't very big. I didn't even know about it. And then, but Joe Dever or Joe Dever, I don't know. It turns out that I may have been pronouncing his name wrong my entire life. I guess he was part of that project, but then Mongoose tried to move it to their open gaming license system kind of thing, and it was like it just kind of died. So in 2013, Cubicle 7, the gaming company, Cubicle 7, decided that they were going to go ahead and try to produce it. They did. They went to Kickstarter. They created this box set, the box set right there, and they also created some supplements that went along with it. That they later produced, which you might still be able to get. But then last year, they decided that they were going to discontinue the Lone Wolf line. And I think the reason has a lot to do with the fact that Joe died, and he wasn't working on the project anymore because he was part of their project. He was actually part of the creation of this RPG. And then I also think that it also had something to do with money, because no matter how hard you look, if you Google as hard as I did, you will probably not find any actual plays of this RPG. In fact, the only one that I found was also a review by Guy Sklanders, and it feels like it was a promo thing that Cubicle 7 did to help, promote the game. And so it doesn't feel like it's an actual play. It's actually also short. They only play for about 30 minutes, and then they start talking. Well, they have this bit in the front, which is actually at the end, where they just talk about the system and talk about what they liked about it. So it's not like a full actual play session. And so, and Guy Sklanders, is the guy from How to Be a Great GM. So anyway, the point that I'm making is I think that they actually Cubicle 7 stopped supporting it because of money. They say there was like a licensing problem. That's what they say. But that's it. That's all they gave us. And then they just immediately sold everything that they had and just got rid of the inventory. So now you can't find it. You can't find it anywhere. You can it just shows up on Amazon and stuff like that, but it says out of stock, waiting for restock or anything. There's not going to be a restock. So it's just over. So I'm kind of disappointed that we all missed out on that particular boat. I kind of knew about it, and I actually bought them all when Cubicle 7 put them all up on Humble Bundle. I think it was that or Bag of Holding. I think it was Bag of Holding actually. And so I have all of the PDFs that came directly from them, which includes all of the supplements as well. But I did not realize that was because they were getting rid of it. They were just unleashing it to the world, and that was the end of it. And I should have bought the physical copies when I had a chance, but now I can't. But anyway, that's what you would have bought if you'd bought it, because they didn't have a full rule book like they would with anything else. It was just a box set. And then the supplements were in bound books. And so that's what it was. So let's talk about it. So the game, there's basically two modes to the Lone Wolf RPG game. The first mode is the Initiate mode, which is the easy system that is basically Joe Dever. It's like them and Joe Dever working together, because he worked on this project. He's actually one of the co-creators of the RPG. It feels like the Initiate mode is the way that they wanted the game books to play out. It's basically the game books told in a tabletop RPG format. It's almost exactly like. In fact, it still uses the sort of random number, grab chart and things like that. And it really does it's very simplistic. And in fact, here I'll show you the character sheet, the action chart for it. Let me go ahead and clear this off the board. The action chart for it looks a lot like the action chart for the from the books. This was a test, so I erased some things. I made some changes, and I didn't realize the special items section was where the quiver was supposed to go. But yeah, so this is it. This is the character sheet. And so it very much feels like it's just the tabletop or the game books turned into a tabletop RPG, and that's what Initiate mode is. The rules are quite simple. everything is just a D10 roll, and then if you have the disciplines, or if you have the high disciplines, then you pretty much don't need to make a roll. You just do the thing that you want to do, or the discipline does a special benefit to the numbers for when you do roll, right? So that's kind of where you're at. So that's sort of what it's very simple. So if I was so an example is if I were to be hunting, I don't need to make hunting rolls to try to see if I kill a thing. I have hunting, so I just ignore the required meal thing because I just found a rabbit and I ate that, and that kind of business. There's no rolling. It's just simplistic. Sixth Sense, just kind of you don't really roll. You're just not surprised, right? And so, that's the simplistic nature of the initiate mode. And then the master mode, or the master setting, essentially for the rules, is a little bit more complex. Here's the character sheet. It's the similar style, but then there's some additional stuff. There's some traits added in. There's this a couple of extra stats. You've got a willpower stat instead of an endurance stat, or as well as an endurance stat. So you have combat skill, endurance, and willpower. And then you also have a defense, which is the combination of your armor and shields and any special things that you might have. And then you have traits and skills. So they're actually, traits and skills. So there actually are skill rolls at the master level. So the master level is more like a traditional tabletop RPG where you have to succeed on skill actions and do stuff. Both of them follow a very fast character progression. Basically, every adventure you gain a new trait or a new discipline. Unless you follow the campaign mode progression, there's a campaign section. There's if you're playing in a campaign, here's the suggested progression for character development. So it's after you gain a new trait after 1 session, you'll gain a new discipline after 2, a new skill after 3, that kind of thing, which is tremendously different from the other system, which is just you level up each time, and each time you level up, there's these effects. So every adventure you go on, so 5 adventures in, you're maxed out. Your character goes from their base level to max. In 5 adventures. So the campaign mode slows that down a little bit and sort of breaks it down into these various changes that happen. So it's very simplistic. But in the master mode, rather than initiate mode, in the master mode you have these layers to combat that are a bit different than just a typical combat system. And then you also have these layers of skill challenges, so skills as well as discipline. So instead of just being a D10 roll and you're just looking for a target number, which is what it is. For most of the system, you're just going to roll a d10, and you're going to have a difficulty that's going to be set by the narrator, who it's going to be a 5 or 6. Essentially, the rules are 6, 7, 8 are really challenging stuff, 8 being the most challenging thing. So typically, if you're going to have them make a roll, the rules are don't have them make a roll for something that's not really heroic. If it's just them climbing a ladder, they don't need to make a roll. But if it's them trying to scale a mountainside in the rain while being chased, okay, then they're going to need to roll, right? That kind of thing. But then it says 6, 7, and 8 are the difficulty levels for the complex stuff. So 5 will be a typical level of difficulty for regular things, and then below that stuff is kind of not really things that you need to roll for, but maybe you have them roll for some reason. But yeah, so anyway, you roll a d10, and in the normal system, you just roll a d10. And if the game master wants to give you a bonus for some reason, maybe one of your disciplines applies in a slightly different way than you would normally just succeed, then they give you a +2 to whatever you roll. Or maybe you decided to do something interesting, so they give you a +1, +2, or whatever to your roll, and that's just it. You just have to get that target number, and then you succeed in doing whatever. Except combat. We'll get into that in a second. In the Kai Master mode, you have these extra skill things, which have bonuses +2 if you have a skill, +1 if you are the first level if you're level 5 and you have a couple skills, and it goes up from there. So at 7, it goes up to 2 for the first ones. It's really kind of complex, but essentially, you'll roll the D10 and you'll add some number to it. And if your discipline applies, then yeah, it might still just trump the thing, and you might just win. You successfully hit or whatever. And so tools matter at the master level, and actions matter, things like being at higher ground or seeing them coming, that kind of stuff. You do have to roll for surprise at the master level, so your sixth sense doesn't just kick in and you don't get surprised. It just means you get to make a roll, whereas everyone else doesn't get to make a roll to see if they're surprised. Yeah. There's a thing about that being at the initiate level too, but that didn't make sense based on the way that the disciplines are supposed to work at the initiate level, so I was kind of confused by that. But anyway, so there's these 2 modes. And then for combat, It's really, really simple. Combat's very simple. And actually, I think the combat system is pretty cool for this game. Basically, you're going to be attacking. So when you have an engagement, when you have two people fighting, right? Like I'm going to fight you, or I'm going to fight this guy over here. The two of us are engaged in a melee combat, and so we have an exchange, and it's a simple matter of I'm attacking you, or they're attacking me, whatever the case is, and the attack is happening, and we're gonna take the character's combat skill. So in my case, for this pre-made character, or this character I made, 16. I take that number, right? That's my combat skill for my character, and then I'm going to minus the enemy's combat skill number from that. So that might be a positive or negative number, depending. Maybe they have a combat skill of 17, so it's a -1. And then I'm just going to roll a d10, or randomly choose from the number chart, which is dumb. It works for the game book, so it really shouldn't work for the RPG. We roll a d10, and then I'm going to look at the action chart, the damage chart, and determine from the -1 row where the number that I roll. So let's say I rolled a 5, I go down the -1 all the way to the 5 section, and it'll tell me how much damage the enemy took and how much damage I took. And that's important to note because that's our little exchange. So in that exchange, maybe I took 5 because it was 5, and they took 6, right? Or no, well, I guess it was in their favor, so it'd be I took 5, they took 4, something like that. So that signifies that in our little exchange there, we both took actions. I tried to stab them, they tried to stab me, like that kind of thing, and we stabbed each other, and so we both took damage, and that's the combat. So then when it comes to that character's turn, right? So if say I attacked them, when it comes to that other person's turn, that bandit's turn, they've already had an exchange. We've already had a little combat, so they have a chance to decide if they want to do something that is not combat related, like try to run away, try to heal themselves or heal their friends. Try to use some skill action of some kind. Try to distract me with a technique. There's a couple of different techniques to distract me or disarm me or tackle me or whatever. But it can't be. It doesn't do damage because we've already had a damage exchange, and that's important to note because if you have multiple players and multiple enemies, then you have this exchange where maybe I and this other person, we had a little engagement because I went first and I went at them, so we had a little engagement. Well, then my friend who's standing right next to me wants to rush in and attack the same person. They have a little exchange as well, but that enemy doesn't do damage to my friend because that enemy has already done damage and has already had an exchange. So the friend that's diving in will just do damage to them, and that makes it really easy for ganging up on people. And so, in an example, let's say I'm walking through the city and I go down an alleyway, and all of a sudden I get cornered by 3 bandits. That's not great for me. That's not great for me at all. And the rules are going to be such that I'm going to take a bunch of damage from these guys because I'll have an exchange with one of them, and then the other 2 are just going to come in and shank me. So that is how the system works. So that's pretty cool because then I have to decide, do I want to actually take these guys on? I am outnumbered. So even if I'm a really high combat skill and they're medium level, even if I have the 16 and they have 12, they're still going to do damage to me, and I won't do anything back to them. So it's just going to be attrition, where essentially they're all just going to stab at me until eventually I manage to take them all out one by one, or they take me down together as a group. So it's really kind of an interesting system, and it's oriented toward the idea of playing or the narrative version of the game. So it's not really oriented toward fighting per se. It follows the gamebook style of the action charts and the damage ratio or the combat ratios and the damage stuff. But it's done in a way that makes it so that it plays out more and focuses on what are we doing and how are we doing it, rather than I stab you, you stab me, I stab you, you stab me, and then you die. Right? It's not a game of okay, stabby McStab, stabby McStab, stabby McStab, and the person is dead. It turns into a game of okay, well, I'm going to try to use the table as a separation so that I can't be shanked by these 3 guys, right? I can be one of them and I will get into a combat. Well, the other 2 have to figure something else out. Maybe they got to throw plates at me or try to flip the table or something else, thus giving me a chance. And so it really focuses on the idea of sort of determining what's happening in the combat and how and what that means. Because also at the same time, the numbers might be dramatically strange. I might do 9 damage in one hit and then 2 the next. And it's not a matter of dice roll. That's just how the chart plays out, even though the ratio stays the same between whether I'm better than them or not. So we have to sort of figure out what's happening or how I got a ton of damage at once, and then I didn't the second time. Like, what did I do to get away from the damage that second time? So it's a very simple system. And then for damage, it's really just what the chart says. And if you're playing in master mode, then there's also, you consider the defense for the character, so both the good guys and the bad guys. So if they have a defense of 1, 2, or 3, probably not going to have a defense more than 4. It's really like the way that it breaks down is it's not going to be more than like 4. So the damage is going to be whatever the damage is minus your defense. So if I have a defense of 3 and I took 7 damage, I'm going to take 4. That's it. It's that simple. The only thing that gets complicated is if it's below that number. So if I only took 3 damage and I have 3, that doesn't negate it. It's not 0. It becomes 1. There's a minimum of 1 unless it's like already 1. Like if I was only going to take 1, and then it's like the defense just shook it off. But otherwise, if it's 2 or more, then essentially like I take 1 minimum. And that's it. That's the whole system. That's it. That's the whole thing. It's really not complicated at all. And it's oriented towards storytelling so that it focuses on the idea of like the world and like Summerland and Magnamund and the Kai Lords and the whole business, leading up to the point in which the Dark Lords eventually rise and kill everybody off and leave Lone Wolf to be the only remaining Kai to go about his journey. And so that's the story. That's the whole RPG's like build. So it's very cool. So I do give it 2 thumbs up because I actually really like the simplicity of it. In a way that is a little complex, like complex enough that you can do some interesting things, like as far as the story of a combat goes, and it's not focused on who's winning. And it also doesn't have a system of just whack-a-mole until, everyone dies. It's a system that is kind of engaging in a way, because I can think strategically. If I'm the fastest and strongest character, then I might just jump into fights with a bunch of people at once so that my friends can come around and just kill them by shanking them in the back. Things like that. Like it creates this sort of dynamic system, because once the engagement happens, this is the other side of it. Once I start the melee with somebody, they can't leave it. Like you can't just run away from the melee. There's no like just run away, or there's like I'm gonna move away and then I have this attack of opportunity. You're sort of stuck there, and so it allows you to sort of control the fight a little bit. You can try to run away. It's this evade thing, and it's treated like another attack. Like it's essentially treated by this. You're gonna make this combat roll and see what happens kind of thing. But it's treated just like in text. So if I want to run away, we just do another, like it's an attack, a whole thing again, where it's like, all right, well, it's a combat ratio is -1. I'm gonna roll a 5. And then the difference is that the person running away, the character running away, whether it's the character or the NPC, they don't do any damage to the other person because they're trying to run away. They just get hit by the damage that comes in from the person trying to run away from. And if they don't go unconscious, or have health points that have health points that reach 0, or endurance points that reach 0, then they run away, and they run away. And the idea is that you're not just running away to like go to the other side of the room to come back in to fight. You're running away because you want to run away. Like you realize you're going to lose the fight, and you're going to die, so you're running away to run away. So you run away and you just go away and you get away from the combat. You dive through a window, you slide out a door, you get under a table, and then you like put on the one ring so that no one can see you, right? It's like, that's what you do. You get away from the combat, and that's why you chose to evade. Otherwise, you're stuck in engaging in a fight until one of the two of you go down. And so that's it. So that's a very cool system. It is unfortunate, like I said, it is not in print anymore, so that sucks. But we can still find the PDFs on DriveThruRPG. But yeah, it's if you like the world that I've been describing so far, then you like tabletop RPGs, this would be a very interesting way for you to get involved in that. It is so simple that like all the books really tell you is like world lore stuff. There's so much more about world lore than there is about the rules in the books. So that's super interesting. But anyway, that's it. That's it for me. That's the whole review. I give it, like I said, 2 thumbs up. Check it out. Find it if you want it. It's not very expensive, and it's really simple to play. It's a fantasy world that isn't typical. It isn't Faerun. It's not your standard D&D races. It's humans dealing with non-human monster things, and like there's wizards and stuff, right? So yeah, that's it. That's my whole thing, and I'll see you guys later.